Previously on Break the Cycles. We visited Gokta Waterfall as well as the Kulab ruins of northern Peru. Then I got scammed by the local police on the Pan American Highway. Then we made our way down to Lima where we got new tire and caught the tail end of the Dakar Rally. Finally, we did some sand surfing and we headed towards Machu Picchu. You can only get the permit for Machu Picchu at the city of Cusco. So we left Huacachina the following morning and headed that way. On the way there, we passed by this tunnel, which has traffic going both ways. It is clearly too narrow to even for a single vehicle. So as I drove in, I was just praying that I don't see the headlight of another vehicle coming the other way. This was totally whacked. And as we ventured towards southern Peru, the animals walking across the road started to change. So the cows and horses are now replaced by stray dogs and llama-like animals. I mean, there's a lot of different ones. As I know, they're like vicunas, there's llamas, the guanacos. Now, the alpaca is very easy to identify because they have a very woolly coat. But the furless one, man, they all look kind of similar. We ended up making a few casual stops along the way and took some drone shots of the mountain range and ended our day at the town of Chahuanca. The following day, we continued our trek towards the town of Cusco. It was a pretty well-paved road all the way, so we arrived pretty early in the afternoon. We took a hostel on the first day, just out of the city, and I had a good look at my bike, man. The bike is tired. The steering dampener is leaking badly, so I had to remove it. The pannier has seen better days, and the frame was still crooked, and let's not forget, the second windshield I got from Tom, that's also cracked and glued together. I mean, this thing just looks jacked up. The good thing is no one's going to touch it. On the second day, we discovered that the hostel in the city was actually the same price as where we were staying, which is outside the city. So we moved to a hostel in the center of town. Now this was better because it made it a lot easier for us to do the paperwork, kind of walk around without having to like ride the bike everywhere and then have to be worrying about where we park the bike. So this was good. By the early afternoon, we got our permits and we wandered around downtown a little bit and got ready for our trek to Hydroelectrica. Now, what's Hydroelectrica? Well, that's another town which you have to go. You got to stop at before you go to Aguas Caliente. What's Aguas Caliente? That's the actual town where the Machu Picchu is. So the reason why you have to do this is because there's no public traffic going to Aguas Caliente, which feeds into Machu Picchu. So you have to stop by in Hydroelectrica, park your vehicles, and then hike in. Or take the train in, one or the other. Either way, we left in the morning the next day towards Hydroelectrica. The roads on the way are the same type of mountain passes we have experienced in Peru so far, so that part was not too different. But since we were pretty in dense mountain areas, there was a lot of dense fog, so the ride was more exciting than it really should be. At the amount of stray dogs started to pick up on the road, so did the number of stream crossings from the rainwater running down the mountains. So there are stream crossings like literally everywhere coming down this road. Now, while they are very shallow, this is actually one of the most deceptively dangerous ride-throughs because if the water has been consistently flowing, there can be algae growth, like a very thin algae growth on the top of the concrete. And the algae and concrete and motorcycle equals crashing without warning. So I took all these crossings very, very slowly. So before I left Cusco, I talked to Winham, who was a few days ahead of me, and he told me that there was like some bridge washout somewhere along the way. Tell me to look out for that, and you had to ride through it. So after being on the road for a few hours, I was like, maybe they fixed it? Maybe I took a different route and avoided it? Who knows? Maybe I got lucky? And then a little further up the road, like I come to like a traffic stop, or I thought it was a traffic stop, and the road became really muddy. And then we're like inching forward. I have no idea what's going on at this point. I figured it's just road work, and I see like construction vehicles ahead. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just sit here and wait. Didn't think anything of it. 1 minute turns to 10, and we're just sitting there. We're like, okay, so what's going on? And we're not moving, so I begin to look around, and I see this like concrete pillar to the left of me. And I was like, Okay, what is this? What, I don't see anything here. And I stared for a minute. I was like, whatever. I'm gonna go up front and see what's going on because I can't just sit here and wait for nothing. So I walk up to the front and I see people walking in the river. I was like, that's kind of weird. Like there's like this flowing river and then people are walking through it. And I see a backhoe like flattening something in the river. I was like, so what the heck are we all waiting for? What's going on here? There's like, and the backhoe is like a little bit further back. So it's not even like up in the front. Nobody's blocking the road. I was like, what's going on? So I was very confused and I like turn around and start walking back to my bike. And I look back and then I see the concrete pillar next to my bike and I realized that was the bridge, or what's left of the bridge. Then everything makes sense. The backhoe is flattening a spot in the upstream traffic for you to drive through the river. There's no traffic jam. Everyone else was just staring at the river and literally waiting for somebody else to go because everyone's just like, holy crap, we're going to cross through here. I looked across the river and I see this 18 wheeler literally stuck in the middle of one of these sections. Probably like, I don't know, it was too loose or whatever, stuck in the middle of the river. So I walked back, got back on my bike, and one of these guys was like next to me, also on a motorbike, and we started talking. And he introduced himself. His name's Edison. He's a Colombian guy, cool guy, stage actor, my kind of people. And he was also headed the same way. He also had a passenger on her back, but he was like on a super tiny bike, like a 250. It was tiny, and they got two people on the bike. It was crazy. And at some point in this discussion, we are like, it's probably better if we put our passenger on another vehicle because there was a bunch of truck behind us. So we asked the girls to be in the truck, and then we took some of our luggage, also put it in the truck, just to make it safe for everybody. So like if we go down, like not everybody goes down, right? And then making the bike a little lighter also is better for control for us to ride across. So it was a great idea. Then after talking a little bit, me and him, we rode up to the front, me and Edison, and everyone else was just waiting for somebody else to go. We got there, we stopped. Edison looked over at me and he was like trying to say something to me, but I'm like, I'm not gonna psych myself out because if I'm like sitting here chit chatting about it, I'm gonna psych myself out. So I just like took off. I was like, nope, nope, I'm going. The current was very strong, but the traction was surprisingly okay, probably because the rock and the gravel was freshly just moved around. So I roll a little bit at the time with my feet down just in case the bike washes out below me. I don't want to like drop the bike and then go down with the bike. I just want to, if the bike drops, then I'll just leave it and then I try to pick it up. And this section wasn't really terrible because this is like, there's like 3 car width wide. So I was riding in the middle. So even if I did go down, like the likelihood that my bike will wash all the way downstream with all these, it's not likely. And then there's so many people walking in the stream. So it's probably going to be okay. Right. So when I got to the 18 wheeler, however, that's a different story because the 18 wheeler is in a section where there's only 2 car length wide. And it took up 1.5 car length. And I'm literally 3 to 4 feet from the edge of dropping off. Like it was like really, really close. And then I got up to the middle of the 18 wheeler and you see a hole and you see a vortex of water because there's like a huge hole there. And then the water's running around in there and you just see a huge vortex of water right in the middle. And I was like, holy crap. Like, if I drop it in there, it's game over. The bike would be gone. That's number one. And I probably would be washed downstream as well and fall off the little mini waterfall into the rocks and be severely injured. Either way, it looks sketchy as hell. I paused again for a moment and I was just like, I can't psych myself out. I gotta wing it. So then I went and my life flashed before my eyes. You can see that as I went, it swallowed like almost the whole entire wheel as I went in and out. Like it was just for a second, but man, that was terrifying. I got out and I was like, oh my God, I'm still alive. Rode past the truck, got all the way across, and then got on the pavement. I was like, oh, thank God. I turned around and looked back. Edison was just on his way. He wanted to make sure that I passed by relatively safely after the big 18 wheeler before he started. And eventually he came up and we all celebrated as a group that nobody died. And and then we continue only a little further up the road of the day, and then we stop in a hostel in Santa Maria. The next morning, we headed towards Hydroelectrica. Now, it was a typical back road in the rural town with dirt roads along the river. It was actually very pretty scenery. It wasn't very far, but it did take us quite a few hours. And when we arrived at Hydroelectrica, we had no idea where to park our bike. There was all kinds of bikes parked in different places. We went up to one of them, and like the guy told us, okay, yeah, you can leave it here. This is the rate. And then we paid him, and then he said he's gonna put it under the tarp. Either way, we locked everything up, got ready, and then left. Now, as I mentioned before, there is a train that takes you all the way to Aguascalientes from Hydroelectrica, but it was almost $30 a person. Now, if you go back and forth and you got two people, you're looking at $120 just take a train in like 7 miles. Like it's super, super expensive for what we thought it was, very overpriced. So we decided to hike in. And as we started hiking towards the route, we met an American guy that was also en route, and we thought, hey, we chatted up. Let's just, walk in together. It's pretty cool. It was kind of rainy on the way, so instead of actually bringing our raincoat, which could be very heavy, we actually got some trash bags that we had, and we used that instead. And this actually worked out very well because once you're done with the trash bag and then the rain stops, you can just throw the trash bag away. So this was good. So the hike to Aguascalientes was pretty flat, so it was a pretty easy hike. We were a little worried about getting lodging without making reservation, but when we got to Aguascalientes, we realized we were overthinking this whole thing. There was a bazillion hostels and restaurants, like hundreds and hundreds. The whole town is nothing but hostels and restaurants. There is not a chance that you will not find something. There was so many things there. So we had our dinner with our American friend, and then we went back to our hostel. The next morning, we headed towards Machu Picchu. The trek up to Machu Picchu is about 5 minutes, but up a steep elevation. So since we are going to hike back out the 7 miles, we decided we just look for alternative options, and there was a bus that takes you up, and surprisingly, it was actually really cheap. So we took the bus up and down, and that was very, very smart decision. But I don't need to convince you to visit one of the seven wonders of the world. But what surprised me was not just the ruins, but it was where it is. I mean, the mountains the mountain we're on is surrounded by other major mountains. And you got a mountain that's nestled inside of all these mountains. And then as the fog or cloud rises, it just looks surreal. I mean, it just looks like magic. It looks so out of this world. Like it's incredible. It is definitely something to experience, but I will add this caveat. Do it when you're healthy, because there is a ton of hiking in high elevation. And in the ruins, if you want to visit stuff, you have to hike everywhere. And there's other places that you can go to, other mountains that you can hike up to. There's just infinite amount of places that you can visit, but you can walk to all these places. But if you're not in good shape and you're hiking in elevation, you're gonna miss out on a lot of stuff. Well, we spent a few hours there, and then we ended up hiking back to Hydroelectrica, returned to the same hostel in Santa Maria. We had a much slower day the next morning, and we stopped by this local bakery for some breakfast. Yeah, fresh bread. Amazing. Yes, the oven looks completely unsanitary, I know. But if you can get over that, the bread was very delicious. So we headed south after breakfast. Unfortunately, on the way back, it started to rain again. As if the water crossing wasn't already sketchy enough, let's add more poor visibility and more water. It made a lot of the crossings very touch and go. Eventually, of course, it stopped raining as with mountain weather, like it just stopped raining finally, and we saw some wild alpacas crossing the road, and the alpacas are literally everywhere. Like the whole mountainside is covering them, like in the millions. Wow. Like it's hard to describe how many alpacas are just like roaming around all over the road. And after a long afternoon, but a short day because of the mileage that we covered, because of the weather, we stopped at the town of Oyote Tambo. The following day, we also had a slow morning start and made it to the town of San Pedro. And we arrived pretty early and had an early wind down for the day. We continued further south the next day on the same mountain range. We passed by a bunch of small towns, and at one point, we saw this cutout on the side of the road. And we're like, whoa, what the heck? And then there's just like people set up booth, and we're like in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's nothing around. And then you see like these people, merchants, emerging from the backside with like all these like alpaca handmade stuff. And we thought this is probably pretty genuine considering that we just saw millions and millions of alpaca everywhere. So we stopped by, take a look at their selection, and thought maybe we'd buy something. And man, we're glad we did because I got my alpaca poncho, and this thing was freaking awesome. It is exactly what I wanted. Big giant poncho sitting on my car, on my bike. Sorry, blowing. Like this could not have gotten any better. Right. So after we were done, we continue on and we ended the day in Puna. The following day, we started crossing over the Andes Mountains to get back towards the coast and make our way towards Chile. Now, we're already at 12,000 feet of elevation in Puno. That's the town, it's already at 12,000 feet. When we left Puno, the weather was perfect. Beautiful, clear skies, wonderfully paved road, and not to mention, of course, the Brazilian alpaca roaming in the grassy fields. You see, it was pretty chilly because it was high elevation, but the day was fantastic. Sun's out, amazing. By 10 a.m., we see like dark clouds, like in the horizon, but to the left and right of it, it's all clear. Only right in front of us there was some dark clouds. But we are riding that direction. But we figure, hey, if both sides are clear and when we get there, it's probably going to move. It might be okay. So a few hours later, it's starting to rain. And we're like, we're kind of pretty close to where we saw the dark clouds. Okay, fine. It's raining. No big deal. Put the rain suit on. And then we thought maybe it would pass by quickly and we'll just keep riding. As we continue, the rain started to get heavier and heavier. And we're no longer seeing clear skies anywhere. And now we're at like 15,000 feet of elevation. Now, as we rode on, I noticed that the snow on the grass to the side of the road, on the left and the right side. And I was thinking to myself, what the hell? You gotta be freaking kidding me. And before you know it, there's slush on the road. And I was like, what the heck? It was sunny a minute ago. And we had to slow down like crazy because the conditions were horrible. We were like sliding everywhere. It was fresh slush. And then the more we go in, the more we ride, like now it's like fresh powder snow. And we are sliding everywhere. And it was like a good 2 inches of snow on the ground. And I literally had to like stop. I was like, we have to evaluate. Do we keep going? Or do we turn around and go back? And then we looked at the map. We're like an hour and a half to destination forward. And it's like 5 hours back. So we don't, like, we could go 5 hours back, but there's no guarantee that the weather is good going back. Either way, like, we're kind of stuck going forward. And we just kind of like trekked on, and at 15,000 feet, snow, rain, and wind, it was cold, and I was dying. And as we kind of rode like another 30 minutes, I started to like got really concerned that it's just going to be too cold, and I don't want to crash. And we talked about maybe setting up camp at 15,000 feet, which is fine. It's not the end of the world. We thought maybe we could do that and maybe go through the night. But then we talked about it like, what if it snowed even more at night? Then it could get even more dangerous. So we didn't really have a solution. So we kind of just kept going for a little longer and hoping, just dreaming that the weather will change. And it didn't. And it didn't feel like any different until it got a little warmer. And I began to be really concerned if I'm having late stage hypothermia because I'm feeling warmer than I should be, right? But then I looked around and I see like all the snows are gone. Like both sides, the snow is gone. I was like, okay, so maybe it is getting warmer, but why? We're still at 15,000 feet. What's going on? And before we knew it, we came up on a volcanic geyser. Like, we took our thermometers out. It was 75 degrees, like 24°C. We were freezing our ass off like 10 minutes ago. And now we are at like 75 degrees and we are like taking off all the layer because it was way too hot, like ridiculously hot. And the closer you get to the geyser, I mean, the hotter it get. I mean, it was ridiculous. This was literally a lifesaver. Like, we did consider just like camping there because there's a lot of nice camping spots there. But we were like, yeah, we want to go down an elevation if we can, right? And then we look on the map, we're like, oh, we're close. We'll get there like in like 40 minutes. So we continue on after we warmed up, and we made it to the town of Moquegua at 4,000 feet of elevation. The next day, we headed south to the town of Tacna. I always make a point to get close to the border, but not at the border the day before. So then when we go to the border, like we can get there early, and then if there's any paperwork, any issues, we can deal with it early in the day. So the following day, we cross over to Chile, to the town of Arica. Now, my buddy Felipe from the States had a very good friend in that town, so he received us. Next time, we saw the big hand in the desert and survived camping with a little divine intervention.